Today we're going to test the efficiency of the Slow N Sear versus the Weber charcoal baskets to see which one uses less charcoal when you're cooking low and slow. The Adrenaline Barbecue Company claims that using the Slow N Sear is more efficient than other low and slow methods, and you'll save money by using less charcoal. In fact, they collaborated with a Baby Back Maniac and tested the snake method versus the Slow N Sear to see which one would use less charcoal in maintaining a certain temperature. Now, I thought that was great, but since I don't use the snake method, I use the Weber charcoal baskets. I wanted to compare it to something that I actually use and could see, and I'm going to show that test for each of you. So here's how I'm going to lay out the test. I've got two identical Weber 22-inch Master Touch kettles. They're both black, and I'm going to put the same amount of charcoal in each one. I'm going to maintain the vents so that way I can keep a consistent temperature, aiming for about 250 degrees. And then I'm going to put the Slow N Sear in one and the two charcoal baskets in the other, and we're going to see which one burns out first. Okay, so you might be wondering why I didn't just set the vents to the exact same spot on both of these. It's because that might result in a different temperature. And as you watch a lot of the forums out there, people always ask what's the time and what's the temperature that I should cook something at. Okay, so one of the concerns that people would have is you want to make sure that the charcoal is the exact same. And so I'm starting out with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 80. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Got 80 in each side. Now, as I was doing this, one of the things I noticed is that some of the charcoal is big or small, and so I decided to weigh it out. All right, so that was a little bit of a surprise. I weighed each of these. One weighed 1,827 grams, and the other weighed 1,828. Difference of 1 gram, we're going to call that close enough for the test. Put all the charcoal in the Slow N Sear and in the baskets, leaving a space on the side for the wax cube to light it. Now the baskets took a little bit more effort to make it even, and I needed to create a bridge so that way the first basket would end up lighting up the second one. Okay, timeout. That is not the right way to make a bridge between two charcoal baskets. It meant that I had to do a second test because the first one burned out and the other one didn't start, but we'll get more on that a little bit later. Next, I lit a wax cube in each kettle and covered it with charcoal to get it started. While that was heating up, I put the probes in equal distance from the Slow N Sear and in the baskets. Then I put a probe in the center of the cooking area on the food grate of the kettle, since that's the spot where I'd put the pork butt. This made it easy to make an even test because both the probes were in the same location. Finally, I fished the probes through the vent to keep them from getting pinched and to ensure a good seal around the lid. Then I hooked them up to the XR50 that I used to record the temperatures every 5 minutes. Turn it on, and with a few seconds, they're synced. Okay, so you're probably a little bit curious how the first test played out. But before I get there, I got to tell you a little bit of the story of some of the things that happened. So as I was getting in and I was adjusting the vents, I really felt like on the baskets, I had to adjust the vents more often than I did on the Slow N Sear. I said, no, that can't be it. There should be closer than that. I thought perhaps that it was just in my mind, but when I looked at the data, there was much more variability in the basket temperature than it was in the Slow N Sear. The Slow N Sear picks up in the beginning and then levels off pretty well, where we had greater peaks and valleys when we were using the baskets. I'll show that graph here from the first 3 hours so you guys can take a look and notice the difference for yourselves. So the biggest issue that you guys already know about is with the baskets. I lit one side and I had a bridge to go over to the second side, only that bridge didn't carry over. And so at hour 3.5, those temperatures started falling and I had to intervene. So I grabbed a bunch of the charcoal, the lit ones, and threw them over into the other basket, got it going again, but there was still about 45 minutes there where it wasn't quite as hot as it should have been. And that could give an advantage to the baskets because they had an entire basket that wasn't lit yet rather than having all the charcoal lit and then slowly burning down over time. You might remember that I had one temperature probe with the food grate and another one of the charcoal grate, and I wanted to see what the differences might be. I found that at the charcoal grate for the baskets, it was 10 degrees hotter than the Slow N Sear when they both had the same food grate temperature. So let's say, I don't know, that you wanted to do a test to compare the efficiency of the baskets versus the Slow N Sear, and you only put a probe at the charcoal grate level, you would put the Slow N Sear at a huge disadvantage because it would read 10 degrees lower at the same food grade temperature. It would also get cut off sooner because it would drop off that cutoff temperature that you set. Just throwing that out there, just in case you see anything else like this. So here are the real results. I'm going to take you to right after it finished with the first test. The last kettle finally went out. This went way longer than I expected it to. I was hoping to go to bed already. But the baskets finished a half hour later than the Slow N Sear. So in the interest of having a fair comparison, I repeated the test, but this time I had a better bridge that went between the two charcoal baskets. I made sure it was pretty thick. It went all the way up to the grates, so that way that it was guaranteed that it was going to go through. And in fact, it did. And because of that change, the second test had a little bit different results than the first. Both baskets and the Slow N Sear failed to reach 250 degrees within minutes of each other, and we had set that floor of 200 degrees. They both fell through that at about the same time too. And so what does that mean? They're both about as efficient. They use about the same amount of fuel in a situation where the lid is closed the entire time. So with that, I can almost hear you say, hey, the Adrenaline Barbecue Company said it was more efficient and would save you money. And I would argue that it just depends on which method you're using. If you're comparing it to something like the Ugly Drum Smoker, which is considered to be very efficient as far as smoking methods go, uses less fuel than, say, a stick burner or some of these other things, it would use 3 or 4 times as much as that kettle over there, still saving you a bunch of money. Now the capacity of this is a little bit bigger, but even when you do the math for capacity to charcoal, the kettle with the Slow N Sear wins out. I don't really care about efficiency that much unless the differences are really big. Because if you're cooking something like a brisket, it would cost you $50 or more, but you're only using a couple of dollars worth of charcoal. And so the food in that case is much more important. Also, my time is much more important. While I'm cooking this, I'd almost rather be doing other things than having to babysit the kettle or whatever device I'm cooking it on. And that way I can focus on the things that are really important. B7.
Hey, you sunk my battleship.
So there's a big problem with this test. I didn't lift the lid at all, which may not be accurate to the way you're actually cooking. A lot of times you're going to want to look at the meat, perhaps you have to rotate it or you want to spritz it, whatever your actual routine is, and that could affect the efficiency of it as well. And by far the biggest problem of this is I didn't cook anything as I was doing this test. I only had charcoal and empty space, and so I plan to fix that in my next video. I'm going to cook 2 different pork butts, one on the Slow N Sear, one on the Weber baskets, and I'm going to compare both the experience of me cooking it and the final product of what you end up with. Now if you want to check out that video, it's going to appear here once it's done, because in the end, isn't the final product really what's most important?